The NFL's offseason hiring cycle has begun for coaches, which automatically means people will come out of the woodwork to claim Eric Bieniemy needs to be a head coach. Usually, the liberal dumpster fire that is Deadspin quickly jumps on this bandwagon and pushes that narrative. However, this time they've seemingly changed their stance on Bieniemy in a striking display of hypocrisy. For MRCTV, I'm John Simmons and welcome to the woke world of sports. When Bieniemy didn't get hired as a head coach last offseason, Deadspin author Karan J. Phillips claimed that he missed out on a head coaching gig because he's black. After Bieniemy didn't get hired, Phillips wrote, "Watching everybody else get a chance at something you've proven you deserve would infuriate even the most passive person. Unfortunately, it's an experience black people endure daily. Bieniemy being passed over is just one end of the spectrum that black coaches deal with in the NFL. From every viewpoint, it's easy to see that the system is rigged, unfair, and discriminating." Other Deadspin employees further claimed that Bieniemy should not have taken the offensive coordinator job with the Washington Commanders, since being unemployed would obviously be better than having a top-tier role with an NFL team. On paper, it might seem strange that a guy who helped lead the Chiefs' elite offense didn't get a chance elsewhere, but his time with the Commanders partially showed why many teams pass on him in these hiring cycles. The fact of the matter is, many players don't like him. They claim he's too hard on them and that his style of coaching isn't all that appealing.
I never seen him as a coordinator. He never really called plays, never installed no plays, anything like that. But the thing that alarmed me the most was the relationships with the players. And the one thing why Andy Reid is such a great coach, obviously the X's and O's part of it, but he can relate to players, he can understand them, he can adjust. From when I had him at 20 years old to having him in 2019, he changed. And you got to change with the times. And I think with Bieniemy, he's still stuck in that old back in the days where the coaches is cussing the players out, and it's not how it's played nowadays.
To be fair, I do think these players should grow up a little bit in this situation. But even so, that reality doesn't help your prospects of landing head coaching jobs if you can't relate well to your players.
Now, I was part of that Kansas City Chiefs championship team.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. That one of the first things I noticed is how he talks to the players. It's like, you can't talk to these players. And if you notice, all the players he has issues with, fights with, arguments with on the sideline. And if you notice, when the players speak of Eric Bieniemy, they say he's a really, really good coach. You know, he's disciplined, he cares, he has your back. They don't say nothing about how he's teaching them, how he's making them better. And you never would see that because he didn't do a lot of that. When I was with him, I didn't see a lot of that.
That's part of the reason why Bieniemy was let go by the Commanders and won't be on staff next year. Plus, Washington hired Cliff Kingsbury for that position, likely because they'll select a quarterback in this year's draft, and Kingsbury has a history of working well with young quarterbacks. Again, this situation perfectly sets up Deadspin to cry and whine and say that Bieniemy lost a job to a white man. Now, surprisingly, they didn't. Phillips, the same guy who lamented that Bieniemy was disrespected by not getting a head coaching job, now believes Bieniemy would be better off working with the Chiefs. Phillips wrote, "Eric Bieniemy should be in Las Vegas right now, but due to either a lack of self-belief, patience, listening to bad advice, or a combination of all three, arguably the best offensive coordinator in football doesn't have a job." First of all, Bieniemy is not the best offensive coordinator in football. Even when he was in Kansas City, their success largely didn't hinge on Bieniemy. He didn't call the plays. That was Andy Reid's job. Second, at what point does Deadspin look in the mirror and see the slightest bit of hypocrisy? At first, being with the Chiefs wasn't good enough, and Bieniemy needed a head coaching job elsewhere to prove his greatness. Then, when he got the next best thing to being a head coach, his players didn't like him and Washington chose someone else. Now we're going to say that Bieniemy should never have left the Chiefs, even though you once claimed that was an injustice to him? My head is spinning from the stupidity of that narrative. Deadspin should hire a logic coordinator instead of worrying about Bieniemy's job security.
So folks, what do you think? Was my analysis a home run, or was it a big swing and a miss? Feel free to leave your comments and subscribe to our social media channels that still let you see our content. And always remember, be on your A game and don't cave to the woke agenda in sports. For MRCTV, I'm John Simmons.